Hello, and welcome to the third installment of the Cerulean Skies music podcast, which still does not actually have a name. So we're just leaving it generic. It's the Aldi brand music podcast. And, we're just looking for a home, looking for a nice corporate home for it. I'm once again joined by Seph, who has a better mic now. He's going full metalcore vocalist on
Yeah,
this
we are.
episode. And newcomer Jamie. John seemed to have lost his
Howdy.
hair. and so that's what, Jamie, you want to introduce yourself? Like,
Oh,
what's some music that usually what's some music that we would associate with you, I guess.
all right. Well, name's Jamie. Honestly, I stereotypically get lumped in as your, friendly neighborhood metalhead. I listen to a little bit of everything, but music is definitely like a major source of passion. I'd just say it's pretty much like my go-to hobby is some combination of like checking out new bands, going to
Oh
shows,
yeah.
just trying to immerse myself as much as possible in, just whatever happens to be going around me musically, just going to lots of gigs. But yeah, no, I'm just like kind of a jack of all trades in that respect. But metal's the go-to. Metal's the first love. Everything else is the side pieces.
Quick question:
Yeah,
top three bands.
the red mage
Sorry.
of music.
Top three
What was that?
bands on the
Oh,
spot.
oh God! That's
Fuck.
I hate questions like this. Well, okay, the band that I always go to, like even if it's not necessarily true anymore, but the band that like has probably resonated the most with me over the years, metal wise, is Opeth. Um, so big fan of them. Otherwise, oh God, I'm just never prepared for these sorts of situations. I'm just gonna
Viper.
break the. I'm gonna break. Yeah, if Viper is my other favorite band, easily number two band. Um, well, no, so I'll just pick like a metal band, and then a couple other bands that I also would say I really enjoy. I'm a huge fan of The Cure. And then yeah, and then I would say otherwise. Oof, honestly, well, Depeche Mode's another favorite of mine. So
Hell yeah, the 80s
Damn.
and metal
yeah, pretty
hybrid.
much having nothing to do with each other.
So,
Well,
like, all
something to
right,
do with each other.
I need to be Jamie's advocate for a second and say that like 99% of people who I've ever heard say I listen to a little bit of everything are full of shit, including probably even myself if I ever said that. But like Jamie legitimately knows, like he does fucking listen to every single genre and like extensively. And it's actually insane. That's why I was like, you need to join this podcast because the man's like the man is like the music equivalent of my JRPG Scrimblow. So
I, I'm not sure if I could go that far, but I will. I'll try to rise to the occasion to meet up to that legacy.
hell yeah. So yeah, I like I think you almost undersold yourself. So you people who are listening and are for the first time, I think you're gonna be like, oh okay, yeah, he's not full of shit. Yeah, listen to a
Yeah,
little bit of everything except rap and country.
yeah, yep. God forbid. God forbid.
Okay, okay. Oh god. All right. So Seth, what is our topic this week? What are we
So
talking about?
music and its social impact. So that's just like friends you've made at gigs or by randomly encountering someone and they overhear your headphones and they're like, "Oh fuck, you listen to Opeth too?" Which I've actually had an instance of that. Same with Bullet for My Valentine.
Nice.
um, and
Oh, there you go.
like family, like bonding, deepening bonds with your family. Uh, Big thing there with me to touch on later, obviously, and just social interactions and stuff like that, and how I know whether they've benefited your life or whatnot. And so, yeah, I thought we'd touch on that this week.
Hell yeah, that's such a cool topic. And actually, I'm really glad that you decided to do this because that's actually how I met Jamie. Is he was wearing an Alcest shirt? Was it that one? Hell
This
yeah,
shirt,
yeah, I
yeah,
think it was that one. And he was. I had just moved to a neighborhood in Chicago that's like kind of bougie, kind of white people neighborhood, Lakeview,
yeah, very
and
much so.
yeah, location reveal, I guess. But Jamie was working at a coffee shop there, and I would go in the morning, and I think it was like the only coffee shop near me that had a printer. And then I was just like, I think I was just printing like a resume or something, and then I fully expected the employee of this coffee shop to be into like Nora Jones or at the most Modest Mouse, right? You know, and
The
this man's
machine.
fucking wearing an Alsace
Yeah.
shirt. This fucker wearing an Alsace shirt, and I just started getting into them like not long before that too, and then we started talking, and that's how we met, which is
Yeah,
awesome.
and that's how I met your mother.
That's yeah,
Uh,
exactly. Yeah.
I remember you were wearing an Aesop Rock shirt that day, and I was like, that was my connect of like, damn, like I've never seen an Aesop Rock shirt in the wild.
I didn't remember that. That's the
Yeah,
wow. Adding to the
that's
layers.
yeah, adding to the lore. I'm gonna circle back for a second because it's funny that you mentioned the thing with bullet for my Valentine, where you can obviously have positive social interactions related to music, but in my case, I had a negative interaction with that because I was in my freshman year of college. I was I was in the library. I was studying for finals for that semester, listening to music on my headphones, just having a grand old time. I had a little bit of Scream Aim Fire playing through the headphones. Little did I know that it was playing through the headphones and also playing like through my phone like aloud. And
I've had that happen before,
and,
dude. It sucks.
and some woman came up and gave me the dirtiest look that I have ever received, and like just like telling me to turn my music off. I'm like, holy shit! But yeah, I think I was jamming out to I don't even remember what track it would have been, one of the
Scream.
thrashier ones. But yeah, that was my social interaction. Yeah.
Aim. Fire.
And, okay, not to derail this subject, but I just need to make a quick aside. So I used to be really sweaty with World of Warcraft, and I used to make PvP videos and stuff. And so I watched a lot of PvP videos too, and a song that was used in every fucking WoW PvP video was "My tears don't
Oh,
fall,
Yeah.
they crash around me." I fucking hate that song, bro. I
wait,
hate it so much.
derailing even
So
further.
They used
We showed my son
yeah,
Bullet
yeah,
oh
for
yeah.
My Valentine because that's one of the bands how I was actually going to bring them up because I hate them, but it's one of the bands how I met my son's mother, and she used to love Bullet for My Valentine, and so we were showing him a bunch of our bands like that was including like Panic at the Disco and stuff for his 13th birthday. And so we showed him Bullet for My Valentine, and he goes, "This metal sucks."
Hell yeah, brother. You
Hell
raised the
yeah,
He
kid
bro.
right.
because he loves death metal, like he loves the heavy shit, and like
Ooh,
Lorna Shore's
it's just
yeah,
starting them
Lorna
off
Shore and
early.
Flip
I
from an
love it.
Autopsy are his favorite bands, and Bleed from Within. And yeah, this kid, we throw it on, and he goes, "I hate this. I hate this so much." And my missus is just sitting there on the couch singing it at the top of her lungs. She does not give a fuck. You can listen today, son. It's fucking great.
God.
So I'm gonna bounce that ball back into your court again, Seth, because you have like a really storied familial history with music. It seems like from what you mentioned on here before, like you mentioned like your dad listening to music and your kids even just now, and it's like it's super wild and like fucking awesome that you have such a connection with your family like that. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that? Like, how did you form that
So
bond? I
it
guess.
would be honestly through my parents. So my stepfather, he's big into rap, like especially gangster rap, like Dayton Family, Bone Thugs and Harmony, and the like. And then my mum, she loved, whatever was on the radio, pop music, but then she'd listen to like Nirvana and Pearl Jam and Metallica was one that she would listen to, but she never listened to around me. And then I think I would have been 6 years old, and I just heard Adidas by Korn, and I loved it. And I'm sitting there going, "All day I dream about sex," and I'm this fucking 6 year old running around like singing that at the top of my lungs. And my mom's like, you can't sing that stuff." And I'm like, but I love it." She's like, "Fine, because it's music, you can sing it, but just so you know." And so she taught me like okay, you can sing stuff during music, but you got to understand the words that are coming out of your mouth. Don't go and say that to other people. And I'm like, okay, cool. And so I learned that, and I've instilled that in my kids as well. She didn't want to stop me, and then then Tool, Papa Roach. Papa Roach was a big one in our family, and so they could see that this little kid was going full emo. Yeah,
Got my
and
life.
so they're just like, all right. And then I think the big one that made me step into like I'm just a metalhead was Linkin Park. And so my stepfather, as a way to bond, he was always like playing video games with me, sport with me, and stuff like that. And then he realized he can form a deeper connection with music. But metal wasn't his preferred genre, but he tried. And so the way that he could bond with me through music was Metallica because he liked Metallica. And he's like, all right, here you go, try these guys out. And so I'd listen to them. I'm like, oh fuck yeah, this is awesome. It's fast, it's angry, I love it. And then so we started bonding through Metallica, and then over the years that's expanded the groups. I think I brought up Coheed and Cambria before. It's like my dad's favorite band. He even after I personally feel they went to shit, he still loves them.
Sick.
He listens to them. He doesn't care. He's like, fuck your opinion. And we sit there and have like hour long discussions about like just Disturbed even, and like I shit on him for loving Disturbed. And same with my mum. Like when Metallica came to Australia, she's like, "Do you want to go, son? Like, I'll get us tickets. We missed the Brisbane one, but I'll pay for flights, and we can go down to Sydney and go and watch them there." And I'm like, "Nah, mum, that's
Aw.
cool." But we still try and bond, and now it's gotten to this point in time where I'm 32 years old, and I'll still go around, kick back at my parents' house. We'll throw on Sleep Tokens, the new one, or she'll throw on some reggae like LAB or Catch a Fire or something like that. And we'll just kick back, chill out, talk shit about our week, and bond and further our relationship through music while just relaxing. And it's just become a family thing that's now spread to my family. My missus and I, we love going to gigs, metal music, and just rocking out, coming home. Then my son gets jealous because like, oh, when can I come? And we're like, mate, because I got fit for an autopsy next week, and that's his favorite band. And he's like, oh, do you reckon I could get away with it, Dad? Do you reckon you? I'm like, no, I'm sorry, but as soon as you're at, so we're trying to find gigs that are age appropriate so that he can still come. So the one we're looking at is Hiatus Coyote. That's a band I mentioned a couple of weeks ago. It's just like they're a jazz
Oh yeah,
funk
that's right.
band,
Yeah.
and so they got an all ages gig. So we're gonna take the kids there. It's just a cool thing to be able to get them out into that setting because I know that they're all music heads, but it's gonna extend the love and the relationship that I developed with my family to them, which they can then spread to their kids and stuff like that. And I love it, and so it's just something that's carried through the ages.
That's so fucking sweet, dude. That's like genuinely wholesome and it makes my heart like flutter. Like that's so awesome. Like it's so antithetical to my entire upbringing with music and
Sorry to
shit. That's
derail,
so
Joey, but Jamie, Demon of the Fall. That was the second song I ever heard from Opeth when I was 9 years old. And
Oh damn,
that,
is that right?
so the first song I
9.
heard from Opeth was Benighted, and it was on a mixed metal album. And I was just like, holy crap. And so, just that acoustic and just everything about it, I was just shocked. And then, so I think it was LimeWire or something, I found a way to and then Demon
Yeah.
of the Fall was the first song that came on, and I was just like, "What the fuck?" Because it's so different, and I was like, "Oh,
Talk
yeah,"
about
and I was just
culture
like,
shock,
"It's
yeah.
fucking." And I was just like, "What the fuck?" And then that acoustic kicks in, and then that outro, I still just sit there and pluck away the strings and sing that. Just 1 second. And I was left with nothing. Like, I just sit there and just,
This is why you can't give Seth a mic because then this happens and then and then we're just gonna have to keep asking Seth to sing each song.
sorry, Joey,
Gotta get
carry on.
going.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just as soon as I saw your name.
No, I was just I was just underscoring what you were saying. And Jamie, you kind of have like a little bit of a family thing going on with music, right?
To an extent, yeah. It definitely not quite to the same level as Seph here, but my mom and I have always bonded quite a bit when it comes to, well, specifically like pretty much since I was in college, because up through high school I pretty much exclusively listened to metal music. I didn't really
Yeah.
bother myself to check anything else out. I was the metal elitist kid. Like if it didn't have blast beats, if it didn't have super fast tremolo picking, it wasn't for me for a long time. And then I started to like just kind of venture out a little bit because I was like the same bands weren't hitting quite the same way. Everything was starting to grow a little stale. And then I don't know if it was specifically was The Cure or if it was a band in that vein that I like listened to one day. I'm like, wow, this is actually really enjoyable. Like I don't know why I'm not like regularly listening to stuff like this instead of like the really loud in your face heavy stuff all the time. And so I started to really get into, The Cure, Echo and the Bunnymen, New Order, Joy Division, Susie and the Banshees, Bauhaus, all
Holy
that
crap,
stuff.
that's a shock.
Which I, yeah, no, and I came to realize that like a lot of that stuff, so there was music that I would listen to in the car with my parents growing up, but like it wasn't typically stuff in that vein. It was a lot more so like my dad kind of listens to like to like 70s radio rock.
Was it
He's like
Steely Dan? Was Steely Dan a car band?
actually Steely Dan was not one that was frequently in the rotation, but
Damn. Okay.
there would be like Boston,
Good
Kansas, a lot
stuff.
of that like arena rock shit from like back in the hits. But I came to realize over time that my mom was also into a lot of that kind of like new wavy, post punk, synth pop, like everything in that general like 80s umbrella of bands. And that started to become something that we really bonded over, where I would, anytime a band would come to town, like from that era, like I would, ask my mom if she wanted to go. And we'd usually go like I got her 1 year tickets to see The Cure as like a Mother's Day gift. So like we went and saw The Cure in Chicago, and it was a really fun time. It's gotten to the point where every time like a band from that era will come to town, like it's just kind of like an understood thing that my mom and I will get tickets and go to see them. So like just last month, in fact, we actually flew to California because they had this festival going on. Cruel World Fest is called, but it had a bunch of bands in that vein. So I'm like, well, unfortunately, Morrissey was headlining, but we both agreed
Ugh.
that we didn't feel like sitting through that, so we skipped Morrissey's set. But um, but we
Hell
saw
yeah.
we saw Bauhaus, we saw Devo, we saw Blondie, like a bunch of bands like that, and it was like like while we've gone to shows together, it was the first time that my mom and I specifically made travel plans to like go and attend a music event. And this was all something just a result of like, music like being a passion that like made us want to like actually, to like go and like get a hotel somewhere for a few days and to, like work out like, seeing California as part of that as well. But I mean, it was a really good time though. But yeah, so I'd say musically speaking, I've always bonded more with my mom. To an extent with my siblings as well. Like my sister's a big fan of Radiohead, so like that's definitely been a source of bonding for us over the years. Less so my brother. My brother just kind of like he's like a big like anime
Hey,
J-pop guy, and it's like that encompasses like between 50 and 60% of his personality. So it's like I'm not quite as able to connect with him on that level.
says a guy
But
wearing a Cowboy
Shade.
Bebop shirt.
yeah, no, well, oh yeah, well, Cowboy Bebop's my Discord symbol. But funny enough, actually, I actually used to go to gigs with my little brother back in the day, and I took him to. I'm trying to remember the first show that I ever took him to. Oh, we went to see the band
Holy
Epica.
shit.
If you're familiar, they're like a yeah. So
Wow.
my brother was 13 years old. I have a little. I'd have to be able to find it, but I have a picture somewhere of him where like he's like 13 years old, holding up the little devil horns. We're seeing Epica together at this. This was when I was living in Milwaukee, and yeah. So he saw bands with me a few times over the years, and then eventually just decided like I don't actually care about music. I'm just gonna like watch anime and play Final Fantasy 14 all the time.
That's all right, little
So,
brother.
but
Look, you gotta do what you gotta do.
Sacrifices
yeah,
were made.
But yeah, so exactly.
That's so I remember one of my biggest regrets was not trying to do that with my brother. I think, but I think he would have been very resistant to that sort
Mm.
of thing when he was around
Okay.
that age. Uh so it's
Like
like
getting him into
just
music, or like taking him to gigs,
yeah,
or
yeah, that and just taking them to shows cuz like and not only that but like a lot of like DIY shows which is like pretty much what I was going to exclusively during that time when he was around that age.
yeah.
They were at bars and shit, so there's no way he was getting in. But like, yeah, that I do have like a very big regret, like not trying to push music more on my siblings when I easily could have gotten them when they were young and impressionable.
That's when you
And
got
now
to
I
do
think they
it.
just listen to Two Chains.
Oh,
To 2 Chains.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, probably. I don't know.
R.I.P.
Um,
to a real one.
yeah. So I do want to switch gears and a little bit because I don't have anything to add with familial history with music. So I'll talk a little bit about the social aspect. And it's like when I first started going to shows, I started going by myself. Like when I was like 14, 15 years old. I think I might have recounted this before, but the first show that I really ever went to, apart from seeing Blink 182 in like 1999, was I saw
yeah.
Yellow Card at the Metro in Chicago in like 2003. And
Damn.
so like I went there with like two of my friends or three of my friends. And after that, I was like, oh, I want to go to more shows. That was really sick. And so I started like being like, hey, you guys want to go to this show? And they're like, well, my dad says no. I'm like, that's why you fucking lie to your dad and you go to the show anyway, you
Just
little
about to
bitch.
say that.
But you pathetic fucking pussy nerd. No, but and that's how I got into hardcore. No, and so, but no, it kind of is. And so I started kind of just going to shows just willy nilly or just like on a whim, and discovering music during that time. And Seph, I think you and I talked about this a little bit before, but like discovering music online was a
Oh
different
yeah.
beast back then because I had a 28.8 modem, and it took literally an entire day to download one song, so I had to make sure it mattered. Um, 128 kbps mp3s, all 128 kbps mp3s matter. And
There's some
so
setup to that. I appreciate that.
thanks. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But yeah, so I remember like, I would download like one song from a band and just go see them live just because they were playing here and all I just shows were few and far between and et cetera, et cetera. And I remember like because my friends were just so I I don't want to say resistant because they weren't resistant, but they were just like they wouldn't be
Yeah,
fully
yeah.
into it, right? Like they would listen to music, but they wouldn't make an effort to like go to shows or like really engage other than like, oh, that song fucking rules or that album is so sick. I listened to that song on repeat. That was like most of our discourse. Or like, oh, these lyrics are great. Oh, this part is like stuff like that. Just like color commentary about the song itself instead of like getting into more social aspects. So that was like kind of on me. And I remember, like, I think I went to like a bunch of shows, like indie rock, emo, some metal shows, etc. Hip hop shows at the Metro. I went to a lot of those, and I remember, I think I was like 15, and I started getting into hardcore stuff. I saw, I believe the first band adjacent to it was Lifetime, and that like fucking changed my perspective because I met this big group of people and they were like super vehemently into the scene. They were like all like super active, like so like social activism, like causes, like just trying to do whatever they can. I remember going to protests all the time during this time, and like that like really changed my perspective on things because I was constantly surrounded by people who were just very like comfortable and insulated. And going because I went to like I lived in sort of I went to school in an area with a lot of affluent kids, and so I think that's a big part of it. Like parents were actually involved in their kids' education and upbringing, and my parents were just like they existed. I guess
Did
they
you learn
existed.
anything,
Just
Joe?
yeah, yeah, right. Are you learning, son? They just sort of like not like that they were like absentee or anything. Quite the opposite. but they just like didn't understand anything. So it was like a strange dynamic that I had. And yeah, that whole experience is like super life changing. So I used like I used music as a very big social outlet for stuff. It was like my primary method of communication because it was something that I discovered by myself through my own volition and through my own, I guess, like
Yeah.
effort to be able to like make connections and all that kind of stuff. And it was one of those things where it's like it became something that I was going to shows all the time, not just to see music, but to see people and have like this sort of I don't I want to say convenience, but that seems kind of like a not the right word to use. It seems sort of like a wrong word. It seems
Selfish.
like there's social
Yeah.
capital in there. Yeah, yeah, but like it was just a cool thing to like be able to hang out and see bands that you like who you know share the same ideas and sometimes beat the shit out of a bunch of skinheads, which is definitely something that happened a
Very
couple
cathartic.
times. So yeah, I don't know. How about you, Jamie? Because I know that you obviously go to a fucking lot of shows. Have you ever met anybody at a show or like made BFFs with somebody in that capacity?
Um, I mean, honestly, kind of just like thinking back to different friends that I've made over the years, a large chunk of the ones that I have connected with have been in some way involved with music, whether it was like one of my best friends from high school that I ended up becoming pretty close to because I was wearing I think it was a Cannibal Corpse shirt, and he was like, "Oh, holy shit, Cannibal Corpse! I didn't know anybody else listened to them." And then we started going to gigs together for a long time. It's funny that you mentioned before, though, just brief pivot back to um, just going to shows and like how you tend to go to shows. To this day, honestly, I'm still pretty regularly in the habit of going to shows solo unless I specifically happen to know that I have a friend that also is intending
Yeah,
to like hit a certain gig just because. And I think that was just something that I got used to from a really young age because a lot of times, well, I mean, when I was growing up, when I was in junior high school, like I didn't really know of any other people who were, fans of metal music. And my junior high was a lot of, like people didn't really listen to anything heavier than like Rise Against
Holy
or
shit.
like
yeah.
things in that realm. Which
Oh,
yeah. So it was, and I was like, so as soon as I wanted to start going to concerts, it initially like was just something that I would convince this was back when I was like I want to say 14 years old. I would convince my parents to drive me to Milwaukee so that I could go see a show because it was like I grew up in a small town. There wouldn't ever really be any shows that you'd expect to see there. So yeah, like I went to go see Atreyu in 2006, and I'm like, "Hey,
Oh
Dad,
man.
will
we're
you
gonna go
can I
back to
can I
that.
have a ticket to Atreyu, and also can you drive me an hour and a half to Milwaukee and then just hang out so I can see Atreyu?" So I will say, well, from a social perspective, while my dad was never somebody who was like very musically inclined, like that was definitely like a major aspect of our
The
relationship was that,
drives.
like he really liked like when I would be able to yeah, and he'd really like when I would, be able to go
Yeah,
to
that's right.
shows. So eventually it became like a thing for him where he would try to find out about shows before I did. Like he
Fuck
knew
yeah.
about all the bands that I would listen to and like I would talk about them. And then I remember one year he got me really good because this is like 2011. Amon Amarth, which is a band that I
Yo.
Oh
was
my
listening to a lot at
god.
that point. My dad was like, "Hey Jamie, did you hear that Amon Amarth are going to be playing the rave in Milwaukee?" I'm like, "What the fuck? Are you kidding me?" And then and like to this day we'll like still talk about like, "Hey, remember that time that I knew about that gig before you did?" And it's just kind of like as like a long standing joke. Um, but yeah, no. So when I've gone to shows, though, I've made friends. I've made friends after the fact. Like I went to a couple editions of the 70,000 Tons of Metal festival that they have. Like it's like a cruise off the coast of Florida where they have a bunch of metal bands
Holy
that'll play.
shit.
So inevitably, I've like made some friends as a result of that. Like actually, the people that I've met in relation to that festival that I've actually stayed closer with have been people that I didn't actually meet during the cruise, but like one year there were a few people that I met in the airport, like we were all flying back to Chicago from the fest, and we were just kind of like talking, and then we all deduced that we had been there. We all had like metal
It's pretty
T-shirts on and
obvious.
stuff. So that was like a cool like little social moment of like, hey, I wonder where you've been for the last 96 hours. But and then there's a dude that I actually met in Chicago at a 70,000 tons of metal after party for people in Chicago who had gone. That is somebody that I hang out with relatively regularly now, and that was like purely a result of a social interaction, like having to do with music. So, and in fact, it would be more difficult for me to think of the friends that I've met not related to music than the other way around. Like, I feel like inevitably it always works out as like, music comes into the equation at some point because it's such a like passion of mine that I feel like if I can't connect with somebody on a music level to some extent, it's really hard for me
Be
to like
around
want
them.
to like foster a relationship. Yeah, it's just like it's just it would be like if I was really into, I don't know, if cooking was my life and then I met somebody who like ate McDonald's like regularly and that was just like all that they ate. Like if that's totally fine, no judgment, but like what common ground do
Yeah,
we have to connect on here? And
especially an
that's
Yeah.
integral part like
and
music.
that's like kind of I Exactly, yeah. And it's like I think that's maybe part of why I decided to like start to open myself up to more and more different styles of music because I wanted to see what other people were passionate about and I wanted to see like, well, hey, there's like a ton of people that listen to hip hop and for a long time I was like I wasn't into it, like just wasn't my thing. But like I kind of like gaslit myself into being like, oh, like there's got to be something here. And then I think probably honestly it probably would have been Kanye West that I like listened to for the first time where I was like, okay, I finally get it. Like I had that moment of like, okay, this makes sense to me. I think that was like a desire for me to connect with other people, to like I want to know what makes you tick. I want to know why you like this music. That tells me something about you as an individual. And
Yeah, yeah. I think that begs the question of like where the Venn diagram of music and shared interests like really overlap for friendship. Like and Seth, I'll put this in your court in just a sec, but I think like all my best friends I've noticed there is we're right in the middle of that Venn diagram of music
Yeah,
and video games. And it's like well, most of them. I mean, I have a lot of friends who it's like either one or the other, but like yeah, I've noticed that like I mean Jamie and you can probably attest to this too, but like a lot of my friends I met through the Chicago's music scene, like the people I've stuck with the closest are probably because of video games too, because it gives us maybe again that convenience aspect, which I'm maybe that's a personality flaw, but just to be like, oh hey, we have these two things to talk about. We can hang out and go to a show. We can hang out and play I don't know Smash or Metroid or something, and it's like I don't know. It's like it two very communal things. I feel like really beget themselves to building more bonds. But that being said, like I don't think that you need to like have to have both of those shared interests. Like I don't think like
fuck that.
I feel like if you start to be like, oh, you don't like video games and music that, or you like video games but you don't like the same music I do, then you start like really limiting yourself, and it's like not being able to talk to people outside of your sphere is like to me that's like total death, like social ego death, I guess.
yeah.
So that sucks. But Seth, do you have a lot of friends who are in the middle of that Venn diagram of
So I
video
don't have a
games
lot
and
of
music?
friends because I'm an antisocial piece of shit. But yeah, so
Same.
I like I've got friends that I've had since I was a teenager, and people I still talk to back in my hometown. But I'll go to the Belinda thing later because that's actually we met through metal music, funnily. But with my friend, so my best mate in the world, we met through, so we started working together, and he loved anime and video games. And I was just like, oh, okay, this dude's rad. He's a bit like me. He liked his own, his own bubble. And the way that I broke through to him, because I was like, I like this guy because he likes the same shit as me. How do I connect with him? It was actually through music. And so I was just like, oh, I can't even remember the band at the time, but I think it was Protest. No, oh, and it
Protest the
wasn't
hero.
Protest a Hero. It was like something that led to him mentioning, I think it was Billy Talent, or it was just skateboard music, like punk, like, punk rock. And I was right in that phase at the time. I'm like, fuck yeah. And then, the true Seph came out. And then I introduced him to more wild shit. And then, we were just talking at work about new bands we'd found because we're doing the old, I think YouTube was just on the rise at the time. And so we're finding new bands and we're like, oh, have you checked out this? And I think even to this day, I literally just double check my messages then because he's messaging me about a band like 2 days ago to check out. And he just, he'll sit there and because he's not like me, he just listens to like, what are they, like Spotify radios that play after you finish an album or something?
Oh yeah,
And
the
so he never
autoplay stuff.
fucking knows the
Yeah.
name.
Yeah.
He finds
Mhm.
sick music, but he doesn't know the name of the bands. I'm like, dude, like fucking check the name or something. And then yeah,
You got to hit that like button
and
so you
then
can remember
Yeah.
it.
And speaking of which, folks, if you like the content, give us a like, give us a sub, give us a fucking
shoot us your
contribution in
fucking
some
money.
way.
And but
Yeah. Thank you.
yeah,
Yes,
that
exactly.
so we still connect through music, and but then I got like a couple other mates, very close mates who. So growing up, what we'd do is we'd just play video games like multiplayer games, or they'd play multiplayer games while I played my single player games. But we'd have the music fucking bumping, and the big one,
Dude,
yeah,
yes. Yes. This is how I got all my friends into music. Like we'd be playing Smash or something, and I'd put on like some. I remember the big
Gospel.
album that I got to get people into music, like at least like outside of like the typical mainstream, was "Too Bad You're Beautiful" by
oh
From
my
Autumn to
god,
Ashes. I'd throw that sucker on, and people would be like, "Oh, that's a banger,"
I
like that's
hated
like
them so
different.
much.
This is like 2003, 2004, so it's valid. I don't know.
No, no, no,
Sorry, I didn't
you're
mean
all
to
good.
interrupt, but I needed to
That's the point of
highlight
this
that.
discussion. But that was funny. My big one is Vale of Maya. So Vale of Sev, Vale of
Oh,
Maya. So
that's
I think
yeah.
it was like 2008. So I would have been 18, and I just come across this fucking. Or it might have been 2009, 2008. It's not safe to swim today. And I threw that fucking banger on. It just kicks off with that little lead, and then just goes hard. And like my best mate, he was just like, "Oh, what the fuck is this?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And then my other mates are just like, they're very standoffish. They like who was that? There was a fucking garbage band, but the two of them loved them to death, and they no.
Garbage.
Yeah, they get the
Oh,
band
I can't
Garbage. Yeah.
remember, but it was basically like Five Finger Death Punch, but worse. And yeah, and they were
Oh,
just like,
Yeah.
"Oh yeah, this is cool." And
in
then I
sync.
would just keep playing Veil of Maya nonstop. I'm like, "Common Man's Collapse. This is all you're listening to." And because I'm a selfish cunt, so excuse my language, but I don't, I don't want to listen.
Never apologize for being Australian, Seth. You never have to
But because
apologize
I'm
for that.
selfish and I'm like, I don't want to listen to your fucking shit music. You're listening to mine. And so I'm the single player gamer. I'm such a good mate, by the way. And so these
You're the
guys are
Yeah,
sitting
yeah.
resident
at the
DJ,
table. So we'd primarily go to my mate Alex's house, and they would sit on the table, and they'd have their laptops all connected together playing World of Warcraft. And I've got the TV to myself playing my Xbox playing Devil May Cry or something. And I'm just like, fuck you guys, we're listening to my
Hell
music.
yeah.
And this guy on his own listens to the music. And so yeah, all they got to listen to was like Veil of Maya, Protest here, and basically the whole Sumerian records. Like that was just when they were kicking off, and so
Oh
that's
yeah.
just Born of
Yeah.
Osiris and all that shit like that.
A little bit of
And yeah, Faceless.
Faceless
See,
in the
I was
rotation.
talking about that a couple of like the first podcasters. I'm a huge Faceless fan, despite as soon as someone being a piece of shit. And
I
Yeah.
need John here to balance the Sumerian records
yeah.
distaste.
Oh, his hate for After the Burial is fucking great because my son's graduation song was after his like least favorite song in the world from After the Burial, "Behold the Ground." So my son tried to make them play that for him at the assembly when he graduated primary school, and they wouldn't let him
Oh
because he was an
Uh,
shit.
11-year-old, and they're like, "You're not playing that." But yeah, so the Faceless is funnily one of the big bands that my best mate and I like. We go nuts over every time, like, they come up. We're just like fucking sitting there having mad conversations about them. But yeah, so my friends, like, then I've got a couple other friends, and our big thing is video games and music. They're synonymous with each other, with me. And if you don't like either of those two, like you're saying before, Joe, like they don't have to be mutually exclusive. Like, you can have other interests. Now, fuck that. If you we're not bonding over video games and music, then fuck you. Um,
Well,
Why are we
okay,
having
so
this conversation?
yeah, well, I do need to okay, I need to backpedal for a second because online, I take what I can get usually, but like for you, Seth, I think one of the reasons why we connected is
yeah,
because we have that mutual overlap, right? And I feel like meeting people online is a little bit different than IRL because like I think you're a little bit less selective about the people you become friends with like
nah,
in
fuck that.
physical reality. Just because by sheer virtues, it's just harder to find somebody with specific interests like IRL, right? Like like yeah, you can go to a show, you can go to a Veil of Maya show, and then you could hear a couple people talking about Fantasy Star Online and be like, bro, I fucking love Fantasy Star Online. Yeah, that stuff happens, but like it's so few and far between compared to like I don't know. Going onto a Fantasy Star Online forum and then going to the music section and then hearing people share music, which is something that happened to me. But like, something like that, like where you're curating your own experience and your own friend group rather than like kind of just like letting it happen organically, like I feel like you do in real life, is sort of what I was getting at. But um, yeah, I don't know. That's it.
Well,
That's all I
it's
got to
funny
say
because,
about that.
oh, sorry,
Yeah,
you
they're
can.
like the.
Oh, I was
Oh
just
no,
gonna say,
you're going.
so I have, so I always talk about being antisocial, but I can manage to hit it off with people really easily if I want to. And so I've met like at a metal gig. I met a couple of chicks. My partner and I were at the gig, and then there's two chicks, and I think one of them was interested in me, and she started talking, and we were hitting it off and stuff like that. And she thought it was going somewhere. I'm like, oh yeah, this is my partner, by the way. And she's like, oh, what the fuck? I'm like, oh no, but you guys will like each other because you like similar stuff. And she's just like, obviously trying, like, pulling away because she's like, oh well, you've got someone. Well, fuck this. But then anyway, she ended up being
Yeah.
one of her bridesmaids or something at her wedding, like 10 years later.
Oh
And
wow,
just because
wow.
even though the funny thing is, her mate Joe was actually the one that liked metal. She hated metal music. She liked like pop and R&B and shit. And so, yeah, she's like, oh yeah, no, this is my first time I've ever been to a metal gig. And I'm like, oh, that's rad. But I can still hold a conversation because I have just a general, what is it? Um, I have a general knowledge of many things. and
Yeah, yeah. Just the red mage
Yeah, and
syndrome
so
once
I'm just
again.
like, and so we ended up having a conversation, and then Belinda came over and started chatting with her, and then they headed off, and next minute we were friends, and that was literally like last night as well. I'm standing waiting for Sleep Token to start playing, and I see this chick next to me, and she kept bumping me and apologizing. I'm like, stop fucking apologizing. It's a fucking it's a fucking gig. And she's like, oh, now I feel bad because I'm going to say sorry for saying sorry. And I'm like, well, fucking stop. And she's like, oh, okay. And I'm like, I'm guessing you don't come to metal gigs often. And she goes, oh no, actually, I just recently got into metal music, and Sleep Token was what broke me into like the metal genre. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. What do you get into? And she's like, oh, Florence and the Machine, and more power vocalists and stuff like that. And so we're just having a rad conversation, and then next minute, like, the whole gig, we're just talking prior to the concert actually starting. And then it's like, oh, we'll catch you later on that night. And then friends. I was just like, so I've had that ability to be able to draw people in if I want to. And I do that at every gig, but it's how I've ended up making friends with like bands. Like I was, a big reason John and I started talking is a band called Closure in Moscow. So I'm a big fan of their music. They're like bluesy metal. And I was just randomly talking to a guy. He ends up being the fucking guitarist, Manny, from Closure in Moscow. We hit it off. We have a We have a fucking rad
Hell yeah.
conversation. Next minute, they invite me on stage to fucking start singing Queens of the Stone Age with them while they're after their gig. And
Yeah.
so I'm on stage singing.
Did you kick somebody in the front row in the face like
And
Josh Homme?
One
Is
of
that
the
is
camera people.
fucking
Yeah,
big
yeah,
size
yeah.
14 hoof to the face. But no, that's what I mean. Like Chris, the singer for Closure in Moscow, he's just like, dude, we're going to do some karaoke after we finish this gig. Do you want to come on stage? And I was like, yeah, fuck yeah, man. Next minute, we're having a mad chat. Then we're organising to go down to Melbourne. They're giving me a shout out on stage for my birthday and shit like that. I'm like, this is fucking rad. But that happens with a lot of bands. Same with 12 Foot Ninja, is how I made friends with a lot of the members of 12 Foot Ninja, just talking and interacting. And it's just one of the, like I said, it always leads to video games is that thing though. Seriously, like you talk to every musician, they all play fucking video games.
Dude, it's more common now than it ever
Yeah,
has
for
been
sure.
before. And I think and I think part of that is just because of like this social stigma or whatever of video games has been diminished over time or whatever, but I do think that just accessibility and general ease of use for video games is really, you see that coming more into the forefront. And plus, there's like an overlap between like try hard musicians and being try hard in
Yep.
games too. Like when like I think not just like on like a what do you call it, like a Guitar Hero DDR level, but like also on just like I feel like there's a lot of values that carry over from trying to be a really good musician and trying to be really good at Devil May Cry, that sort of thing. That was not a pointed thing at you, Seth, but just something I've noticed in general. I don't know. And also, how have you gotten this far without like I don't know, like sliding over the fact that Cerulean Skies is basically the overlap of
Yeah,
these two
yeah,
things, right? Isn't that kind of the point? Sorta,
very much
maybe, I
so.
don't know. Oh, which brings me to another question about you. You mentioned, I, gue- I guess almost etiquette
Oh
of
yeah,
going to shows. Uh, Jamie, is there any like? This is maybe a corny question, but like, it, I guess it's just it's one of those things that's like sort of understood but never really talked about. Is there any like etiquette that you have for going to shows?
Yeah, I mean, there's like kind of like an unspoken like set of rules that I try to abide by, like depending on the show in question. I mean, obviously, like like talking in between bands and then shutting the hell up once a band actually
yep.
starts playing. I can't tell you how many times over the years I've been like on the verge of wanting to squarely punch somebody in the face because they're like openly talking during like a
Yeah,
quieter song. It's like,
Yeah.
fuck.
oh, the
Mhm.
volume's down. Now I can be talking full volume, taking advantage of the brief break from the
Shut the
distortion
fuck
of the
up.
guitar. But yeah, so
Yeah.
exactly, yeah, pretty much, yeah. Also, just and this is another one that like people tend to do a pretty good job of, but just as like an unspoken rule, if if it is not your desire to end up in a mosh pit at some point during the show, you probably should not be standing
Around the
directly
fucking
around
mosh
the
pit.
mosh pit.
Holy
Like
shit.
there's so
Yeah,
many
yeah.
there's there are so many times where people like walk up, it's like, look at all this space, oh my god, all this space, like I can just stand here, and then they'll get like
Get
shoved
upset.
and then look
Act
absolutely pissed.
surprised. Yeah.
And I'm
Dude, look,
like
this is a problem for me because I can't see well, and I get
yeah,
so anxious about my glasses and it's like
right,
and I'm usually like part of the pit if I'm standing there. But like,
yeah,
yeah, I see that so often, dude. It's so fucking frustrating.
right. Yeah, well, and it's just like just trying to have a general like bodily awareness as far as like you want to situate yourself like far enough from somebody that you'll be able to do whatever headbang or dance without like regularly running into people. But yeah, like you said, if you're gonna bump up against somebody and then apologize, like I'm gonna go right ahead and assume that you probably don't go to a lot of shows because you don't tend to have like a ton of bodily autonomy, especially at some of those. Um, like really crowded shows. Like I remember years ago, I went to see Weezer at Riot Fest back in
I feel for
2014.
you.
Oh, I remember I was at
Um,
that show. I was
I
at
yeah,
feel for
that
both of
that
you.
yeah,
fest.
they're
Yeah.
they were doing the whole blue. They were doing the whole Blue album, and I to this day I think that was probably like the thickest crowd that I've ever been in. To the extent
Are
that
you talking like two C's thick, two C's thick, or like just THICK?
yeah,
You
no,
talking
no,
dummy
like
thick or what?
well,
Solid
dummy thick
snakes.
ass cheeks. No, there were so many people like that were just like kind of sardine cans together that if the crowd moved at all, you were moving with the crowd. Like you could not you couldn't walk in any direction. Like I remember at one point I probably moved like 15 feet over the course of a song because
Yeah,
the
forced you.
crowd moved 15 feet, and I'm like you literally moved to like not get stampeded, but you can't like yeah.
Yeah,
So not typically I wouldn't say I have claustrophobia, but that's definitely not like a particularly enjoyable way
Not
to
for
experience
anyone.
a concert. But yeah, just like yeah, I mean like unless you're you know like out of it, like if you're really drunk or something and you don't care. But
yeah.
but also who's gonna get drunk off of $17 beers at a festival?
Dude,
But
the people who go to Lollapalooza or Riot Fest, I don't know.
Too
yeah,
much money, not enough
Christ.
sense.
But yeah,
Yeah,
like enjoy yourself as much as you can without impeding on other people's around you ability to enjoy that concert to the fullest is kind of like the golden
yeah,
rule of concert going to me.
yeah. I feel like you can tell a lot about how people interact at shows by. You can tell a lot about people's like, I guess, like physical awareness or just even social awareness by how they
Yep.
act during shows. Um, like people who feel like entitled to their space during a very crowded show,
Mm,
especially a show that's like pit only or standing room only. It's
right.
like, bro, you have to make do. You literally have to make do. If you don't like where you're standing, then fucking move.
Go to
Like
the back. Yeah.
and go to the back, or like if you want to be closer, then fucking move closer. And one thing I always hear is like, I sometimes will go to a show with some friends, and I'm like, "Do you guys want to move up?" And no one fucking moves, and I'm like, "Bro, just fucking move! Like, just move in front of somebody. If they get
Slide.
mad at you, fuck them. They're an idiot.
Pivot.
Like, right? Like, if I'm standing like, because I usually go like first three rows at shows, I
Yep.
just can't see, and
Right.
plus I like the pit energy, I guess. But like, if somebody stands, like, if somebody like goes right in front of me, like, whatever. I'll try to orient
Angle your
myself.
body.
If they're tall,
Right.
if I'm behind Seph, like, yeah, if I'm behind Seph, I'm gonna be like, "Hey, dude, could you move over to
Yeah,
the
that's all
right
you
just a little
fucking
bit?" And then Seph would be like, "Yeah,
exactly. Fuck.
sure, okay, if I can, yeah, why not?" And that's just
It's like
like,
no,
just
and
No,
also
see,
fuck you.
and
it's
also
different
fuck
though.
you.
Joey's right. But what are you? That's your bodily awareness thing that you brought up. If I can see beside me and I see someone smaller than me and they're fucking trying to peek over me, I'm like, go in front, bro. Or if there's a
Mhm.
chick,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah, you're gonna
my
move,
voice.
yeah,
Right. Yeah.
because
Yeah,
you're
I'm
not
not a
a
piece of
wiener.
shit, and it's just being aware that there are people that want paid and want to enjoy the band that you're fucking watching too. So let them fucking do it because I can see over everyone.
Yeah, I don't have that luxury, sadly. I'm like a foot
It's fucking
shorter than you, but
no.
like,
You carry on, Joey.
but yeah, but it's like one of those things. It's like, yeah, if I'm behind Seth, I'm gonna try
Yeah,
to move around him, and if like if other people, get offended by that, then fucking fuck you. You shouldn't be going to
exactly.
shows. That's the whole point of going to a show.
You dumb
Like,
fuck.
you can't. I mean, I have to say, like, I went to Furnace Fest last year, it was in Alabama in September, and like it was super crowded in some of those stages. It was like fucking super crowded. Like Jamie said, like the Radiohead ref like just packed like sardines in a tin can. It was fucked up. But like that being said, people were like, you can tell those were like old post hardcore heads, because like people were very very generous with like, oh, you're trying to get through, okay, yeah, go ahead. Or like, people, if there was like a pit or people were slam dancing, people kind of tried to make a wall around it. It was like someone fell, they get picked up, all that kind of shit. Hell yeah. Um, that being said, that brings me to another topic. Like violence moshing
Stupid
sucks
shit.
ass. so fucking stupid. Like, I get it if
How
you're like if you're seeing
People
beat
going with the
down
intent to
hardcore, yeah,
harm.
you're gonna see it, right? Like, of
Yeah,
course.
I hate that
yeah.
shit.
Yeah, yeah.
No,
It's so stupid.
it's the best way to ruin a mosh pit, and I can't tell you how often it'll happen where you'll have that one guy who
Just has
clearly,
the intention.
like has that pent up rage that he decides that he's going to try to take out on all of these people in the pit. And it's just it especially sucks when it's somebody who's larger who like knows how to throw their weight around, because basically that just kills a pit. Like if you've got this one dude who's like trying to slam into people who's like 300 pounds, like that's just it. Nobody, like, that's somebody's going to end up hospitalized if they attempt to go into that pit.
Yeah,
And
yeah, and it dude, that's the exact thing I saw on Twitter today. Did
No,
you guys see this thread about this exact topic?
no, I
But yeah,
didn't.
sorry, Jamie, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh yeah, no, just no, I'm biased, okay? So like the type of moshing that I'm used to usually just involves like, running around shoving your like, tackling people. Like hardcore dancing does not make sense to me.
Yeah,
I like
same.
I didn't grow up in that culture. Like I don't flail my arms around like a fucking fool when I go into the mosh pit. Like no, you get like a circle pit going, and like that same thing that you mentioned as far as like, if you knock into somebody and all of a sudden they're on the ground, you are
you pick them up.
immediately getting them back up, and there's probably three other people helping you, which is actually something that I've always like, that social element of concerts, especially I've noticed it at metal shows, has always been something that's been like inspiring and like something that actually makes me feel good about going to shows with people who are like attentive enough to the safety of others that they're going to like stop everything else and be like, like we're gonna get this person up, we're not gonna allow them to get hurt. Or if like somebody, I'll honestly even see, if somebody like drops their
Yeah,
glasses or their phone, like
It's happened to me.
somebody will like immediately hold up their hand, and then like they'll kind of like create a little bubble around that area for a few seconds so they can find whatever the item is in question, which like doesn't always happen, and when it does, it's
no,
kind
that
of
happened
nice.
last night.
But you were saying though about the
Yeah,
at the
someone
sleep
lost their
token show.
shoe, and so we just fucking did the old spread the arms,
Oh,
fucking wait, let this chick get her shoe, let her
Yeah,
get her
yeah,
fucking
yeah,
shoe.
yeah.
that's happened to me. I've been knocked out of my shoes
Yeah,
before on more than one
Same,
occasion.
dude.
Like
Yep.
literally, I've been hit hard enough that I ended up missing a shoe or two. So
I definitely hit somebody that hard during Circle Takes the Square once and just blew them up. Like I saw them explode, just fall back and just completely disintegrate into
there,
500
well,
pieces.
yeah,
my
critical
my
hit.
thing is
Yeah,
I'm a
yeah.
big cunt, and so when it comes to music gigs, I'm aware that I'm a big body, and I try not to impede, because if I headbang, I like people give me a wide fucking berth, because my head going to the floor,
Right?
that's like fucking a meter coverage, and people give it to me because I'm headbutting you,
Yeah.
but that's because I go to the front, and if you don't expect to get fucking whooped when you're at the front, then that's on you. But in saying that, so I go to
Yeah.
gigs with my missus, and she's a little mosher. She loves to fucking go off, and so I've gotten used to creating this safety bubble for her. So I spread myself out, I hold my arm out a little like this, not so that it impedes on people, so that she can go off in front of me. Other women find their way to my safety bubble. And so I usually have this, like, three or four people, and then like they go, I'm gonna find you at the next gig. I'm like, yeah, no worries. But so you're talking about violent people. I'm not a violent person. I'm there to enjoy myself. But if I see you being a piece of shit, I'm gonna fucking knock you out. And so,
That's exactly, dude, that's 100% my
yeah,
exact philosophy, like
so
to the letter. My only thing is like in my old age, I'm just so worried about my glasses
yep,
because I can't see shit. I'm completely blind without my glass. Like I'm not seeing anything. I can't get
nah.
contacts. I'm fucked. And I probably should just get
Oh
show
yeah, they're a
glasses,
big
but
one. I just take my glasses off
continue.
because I'm all right with gigs, and but a big one is
Mhm.
Gravemind recently. Well, Gravemind's last tour before their singer left. There was this one guy that was going around hurting people and just like antagonizing people, and I'm just like, what the fuck is going on with this fuckhead? And I saw him, and then we did a wall of death, and I just planted myself right in front of him, And I'm just like, fucking pointed at him, like, I fucking got you. And then we ran, and I ran over the fucking top of them. and
Dude,
and no one felt bad. And I was just, I actually ended up picking him up, but fucking, I was just like, made a point to like clean this fuck up, like up. I was just like, nah, fuck this shit.
I saw a dude like that once at a show, and it was like a smaller hardcore show. This is in like 2006, maybe 2005. And dude was being a fucking prick and like conscious, like he was like elbowing people in the face. One of the guys from the other bands grabs a mic stand, fucking knocks him right out in the middle of the
This is
fucking
good
pit,
shit.
dude. The show ended. The cops came. We were all running. We're like, what the fuck? Like, he was out. Like, it was just like, calm. And I'll never forget that sound. You could hear it over the 010101 riff. And it was like, it was so visceral. Like, the sound was like,
Sorry.
but no, fuck that guy.
We'll
He deserved
fucking
it.
move on from the subject. But another one last night. So you know, when you're standing there, you expect to get bumped, right? That's just a given. You're at a fucking gig, you get bumped. So what you don't fucking do, and if this guy happens to hear me, you do not stick your fucking elbows up. You do not stick your elbows up so they dig into people,
No,
you fuckhead.
never.
And so last night, a dude was getting bumped. And so what he would do in return is put his elbows up and go, because he was very short compared to me, he was going right under my fucking ribs. And I'm just like, I'm getting the shits. And I'm just like, oh my God, I'm going to fucking lose it. And then I just turn around. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing, cunt? And he just stared at me, and he's just like, oh, I'm sorry, man, it's the people behind me. And then my brother came up to my shoulder and goes, oh, bro, it's the people behind him are pushing him. And I'm like, okay. And I've reached out and I put my hand on his shoulder. I'm like, it's all good, bro. Don't worry about it. My brother just told me it's not you. Drop your fucking elbows. And he fucking ran off. So, yeah, I don't care about getting bumped.
And that was the last time he held his elbows
he
up at a
fucking
gig.
ran.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was just like, because I, like I said to like my missus and my brother last night, I never get angry at gigs. It's expected. Do not put your fucking elbows up. What the fuck is wrong with you? Like, it's insane. I was so angry. I was just like, because I'm like, I can cop a couple of blows, but like, it was just like incessantly, like the people behind him were shoving him, and he's just elbow, 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 and I'm just fucking chip damage, and I'm this.
You were.
And I got no revives, bro.
That was you and Jackie Chan last night.
Seriously though. So yeah, sorry to carry the subject on for so long, but fucking drop that shit. Have some fucking etiquette.
No, I think that's an interest. I think that's a fun, interesting thing. That I like how like Seph's cuntometer was just through the roof there. So good.
Oh god.
So good.
Fucking rage.
But yeah, no, I feel like that does kind of tie into the major subject of this episode, right? Like just, you know, how you forge social connections at shows. And I think, again, like your etiquette shows, and I think like that sort of thing, like makes people gravitate toward one another. Like if I see somebody at a show who's like, you know, I guess doing what you were doing, I'm going to like probably be more likely to talk to them because they're like somebody who
a nice
knows what
individual.
they're doing, basically, right? Yeah, and it's like, and I think that, you know, I'm fortunate to have grown up in a scene that was very, very welcoming in that regard. Maybe I'm not saying that people weren't super judgmental for absolutely no reason. It's the same kind of clickiness that you see anywhere else. All that shit was very persistent, especially in the early 2000s. But at the same time, you know, like nobody was really out to hurt anybody who wasn't like a fucking Nazi, you know, or something like that. So it's yeah, I don't know if things are still like that now in scenes growing up, and I think like one thing that you see a lot is especially like in DIY music, is this whole idea of like safe spaces and welcoming spaces and stuff like that. But these safe spaces are perpetuated by a lot of very fucking predatory people and a lot of people who, like claim virtue but are really quite shitty. Jamie, I think that you and I probably have a very good idea of like the amount of people who this would apply to.
Oh,
um
absolutely.
so it's like I think originally, Seth, you wanted to talk about like some social implications of like people who are problematic in music and what that means and all that kind of
Yep,
stuff. And I think that like provides a good segue for maybe our next episode or whatever else that we talk about there.
100%.
So
Yeah, that's a big one because John, definitely want John to be a part of this. It's the parasocial dynamic
mhm.
that we're hearing a lot about. Like, I'm old. I'm just learning about parasocial relationships and shit like that, mostly because I don't fucking use the internet enough to know about that stuff. But yeah, just more so the band members themselves, and you've got a platform. Pardon my voice. You got a platform. Use it appropriately, because the reality is, oh, like my brother is he hates cancel culture, so he's the one I go to all my like a lot of my music gigs with. This is my brother-in-law, and we are talking about this last night. So again, this is just going to lightly touch on it, but I was saying, so I'm
Mhm.
a big Norma Jean fan. John, one of our cast members, he enlightened me to some of his behaviour, and I'm not one to sit there and go, oh, okay, never going to listen to Norma Jean ever again because I fucking love him. I still am not going to ignore the
Yeah.
music that I grew up with and grew to love from them. But I'm going to approach their future music releases with hesitancy, especially the fact that I can find bands that I like just as much or more releasing music as well, and afford more time of the day for them, because I'm just not going to sit there and appropriate certain kinds of behavior, because I don't want my children to think that that's fucking acceptable behavior. And it's just one of those things.
Yeah.
It's a simple understanding. It's nothing that's not partaken in cancel culture, because I agree it's fucking stupid. People get older, they learn from their mistakes, and they better themselves. Most people. Um, and so it's just some people.
Some
Yeah,
people.
yeah.
Some
A
people.
couple of people.
A couple guys once in a
So
while,
I'll never like shit on someone's efforts, but um, backpedaling and stuff like that. So that's a big one for me. So you definitely want to probably have that's a episode worthy subject in itself. That more so behavioral things in music and shit like that, and what it stigmatizes or whatever it is in the music scene. So yeah, really, really going to be going a bit deep in that one, and we'll have hopefully a full cast for that one.
Yeah. Jamie, do you think that, I guess, a band or artist's political or social views have influenced how you interact with members of a particular show? Like if you went to a Norma Jean show, would that influence like how
Oh,
you act
100%. Yeah.
there?
I mean, so the way that obviously, like it depends on the severity of the thing in question, and obviously, I don't want to get too in depth with examples, just if we're reserving that for a follow up episode. But just on
Mhm.
a general level, to, it kind of depends on whether I'm in a position where my going to see them perform live or in some way financially support them
Fuck yeah.
will in any way perpetuate negative behaviors of theirs. This is a big thing in the black metal scene, specifically with black metal music. There's a lot of problematic characters, and there's like a very insidious network of like crypto fascist groups that are not like openly or overtly, like political in their lyrics. But if you do even the basest amount of research, you find out that, like, oh, wow, these people are involved with some pretty heinous individuals and organizations. And if I decide to go see them play a show, or if I pick up a T-shirt of their latest album cover, like that's putting money in their hands to use for purposes that I can't in any way like condone or support. So that absolutely impacts my decisions when it comes to that. And then on kind of touching on what Seph, what you were just saying, um as far as like, when it comes to like approach, like being hesitant about listening to future releases of a band that you've kind of heard some questionable things about, at the end of the day, for better or worse, it's become a lot easier to find music that checks a lot of the same boxes as like a particular artist or a particular band that maybe really you used to like, but now you're not really feeling super sure of like whether you like still feel good listening to their music. Like there's fucking 30, 40, 50 bands that sound very similar to Norma Jean. There's like a bunch of bands that sound similar to like Brand New. There's bands that sound similar to like any number of acts that just like, it's not exactly, it's like the Aldi, like the Trader Joe's version, it's just like it's almost as good, like
It will satisfy.
but yeah, yeah, and again, that's not being like, like being overly meticulous about being like, oh well, I don't like the fact that this one artist like made this one post on Twitter 14 years ago that
Mhm.
used
Yep.
a slur. I'm never gonna listen to them again. Like that's a
Yeah.
different sort of beast, But
Yeah,
I
it's
know
all
that.
it's all very
And
contextual, I think,
that's it.
in that sense.
Understanding the context.
Um,
No,
yeah,
that's what
sorry,
I
go
was
ahead,
just
sir.
going to elaborate on that. Understanding the context. If it's something minor, fucking get over it. Fuck me. And there's
Right.
more things in the world for you to concern yourself rather than a guy saying a slur when he was a fucking teenager. Shit, let him grow up. Let him.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, and
Yeah,
yeah, it's like it sucks that you said that. That's kind of, disarming, but at the same time, you consider what
yeah.
happened. You were 16 years old and you fucking learned from it,
You now
like
use your
whatever,
platform for good.
If you have in fact
Yeah,
learned from it,
yeah.
that's the big thing.
Yeah, and that's the thing you have to decide. It's like you leverage that against what behavior you're seeing from that person now, and then you decide, hey, yeah, of course that dude, maybe that dude just fucked up. It sucks, but they fucked up. They're obviously not that person now. Um, but in the case of like like you said, Brand New, yeah, that dude sucks. Like dude just fucking sucks. Like it's pretty obvious. His behaviors speak for himself. So, but yeah, sorry, I did think that was like kind of a good foreshadowing for this episode, and I didn't want to get too long. So,
Yeah.
I wanted to speak a little bit about the music that we chose, like maybe a couple minutes about the music that we chose for the playlist this week. But before that, anyone else want to say anything about this topic? Seph, I know this was your
Yeah,
topic,
I
so
was
anything
actually
you want
just
to
yeah, I was just going to
retread
quickly.
or
So, another one of those fucking long-winded, heartfelt stories. So, do you guys have like with your partners? Do they share similar interests in your music? I know you've mentioned Kelly is
Hmm,
a little. She'll listen to it. She'll tolerate it. I'm not sure if it extends beyond that.
oh no, so my partner is very she listens to a lot of what I do. I would say it's like maybe 80% of what I put on she enjoys. So it's like there are definitely some things that she's like against, like she could not stand Philo Medusa, and Jamie was there for this actually. um she like that's okay, dude, it's actually really funny because she discovered, and not through Saint Anger, funny enough, but she discovered like what terrible snare sounds like from that. And
Oh
but
god, that
but
trash can snare.
yeah, the pop baby. But I think, and I brought up Furnace Fest earlier, but that was the first time that she had really ever seen a lot of those bands, that type of music live. And I think that she really appreciated a lot of what that kind of music was after. Like I've noticed, like after that event, she was listening to a lot of things I wouldn't think that she would have normally
Fuck yeah.
listened to. Like, and, like out of her own accord, not just like, oh my
That's
partner
the dream.
shows me this band, so I'm gonna
Yeah.
listen to them. Like, it doesn't ever really seem like that. I don't want it to ever really seem like that. Um, because I mean, like you show your partner music, of course, but like I never want to dictate. She's actually wearing a Haste shirt as we
Rad.
speak
Oh hell yeah.
because we saw Haste there. That's funny. That's really funny. Um, But yeah, what about you, Jay? Like, I guess like current
Yeah,
partners or whatever.
yeah, no. So like, not currently with anybody long term, but partners that I've had in the past. Music has always been like a big force of intimacy and connection. Where like, I mean, I feel like going back to what I said earlier in the episode, just that like like finding out what makes somebody tick, and like like finding out, even if it's not something that you necessarily enjoy yourself, like finding out the music that a partner or a good friend or whatever is really passionate about, I feel like is very informative about like just enables you to learn a little bit more about that person, and like kind of like know them on a
100%.
different level. So music is always, yeah, like with past partners that I've had, that has always been like like generally speaking, what it looks like is I show them like a bunch of bands, and then they enjoy maybe like like 25 to 30% of them, depending on like what like sphere of music that we're in. But then it is always a nice feeling when you see that person like seeking out listening to that music on their own time, and not just like having it be like, oh, I'm listening to this because I'm supporting the person
Yeah,
that I'm with. Like it genuinely excites me, and this is with anybody. Like if I expose somebody to a certain type of music or a certain band, and then I see them like listening to that like in their regular life, like that,
it's a
like
good fucking
that's like
feeling.
one of the biggest compliments that you can pay to me, is like like you like you like listen you like kind of like listen to my suggestion, and then like that has in some way caused you to augment like how you do your music
Yeah, that's
rituals and all that. So, but yeah, that's definitely prevalent.
I have a follow up question to that too. How okay? So I don't know how to say this
just
without
sound like a
sounding like
dick.
a fucking dick, but yes, but I'll just sound like a dick. So I feel like the only natural talent I have is to be able to sort of like discern a person's entire personality from like two or three traits and predict exactly what kind of person that they
Uh,
are, or what kind of person, yeah, what kind of person they are. And one of the litmus tests I use is music. And that doesn't mean that like, oh, if you don't listen to post rock, you suck or you're stupid, or if you don't listen to heavy music, then you're a pussy, or
You're an
something
idiot.
like that.
bitch.
Nothing. I don't mean it like that, but like I feel like okay. So for example, right, somebody who only sort of listens to what they're given, whether doesn't matter what genre that is, but somebody who doesn't actively search out music, it's not a
Fuck
negative
yes, it
thing. It
is.
just it does say a lot about what kind of uh depending on how you view it, but like it says a lot about like what the way that they approach creativity,
Yeah,
or
yeah, that's fair.
and that doesn't necessarily mean that they're not artistic or anything like that. It just means that like it says a lot about who they are as a person. um and oftentimes I heard the counter argument like, "Oh, you can't judge a person by their music taste." And it's like, "Well, yeah, everything in context, bro."
That's it.
Like I feel
Right.
like like exclusively listening to country music does actually fucking say a lot about you, or exclusively listening to one genre says a lot about you. Like, and Jamie, I'm sure you see this a lot with like people in the metal community who like exclusively listen to metal and everything else is like some pejorative about
Right.
homosexuality or
Elitist.
something,
Yeah.
like
Oh, absolutely.
right, yeah, like, it's so I mean, what do you guys think about this? Like, do you think that you can discern certain personality traits for the way that people
I'll let you
approach
go, Jamie.
music?
I don't know that I could say that I could limit it to like knowing one or two personality traits of a person, being able to pigeonhole them into a specific like personality category. But what somebody does listen to, and then like how people respond to different types of music, can be informative in that sometimes it's really just a matter of like if somebody's never heard something like what you're showing them, then of course they're gonna react with like some semblance of confusion, and like they can that's like a pretty normal reaction to elicit from something like that. But yeah, but I mean, there's definitely been people that I know who like exclusively listen to like whatever is on the radio currently, and like that's just and you know that, and it is what it is, you know, like if that's the way that you interact with music, if that is how music has meaning for you, then sure. But I know right off the bat that that's probably going to be a person I'm going to have a difficult time connecting with, only because of the fact that the way that they interact with music is just so alien to me, that in my mind it's just like I feel like music probably doesn't play quite as significant of a role in their life, which is not, you know, which is totally cool. I mean, like there's so many like hobbies and sources of passion and media that you can interact with other than music, that like, you know, you're not going to be beholden to like, oh my god, I can't believe you don't listen to whatever. I can't believe that you don't listen to, you know, insert Edge of Sanity. Like you're a metal fan. You don't even listen
Yeah,
to Edge
that's
of
the
Sanity.
worst,
Like
by the way.
God, like what the fuck is wrong with you? You know. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, but I definitely like there. I try to refrain from passing judgment on a person until like I get a good sense of like other of context, like Joey said. But that does kind of set the stage as far as like, you know, if I have access to like a tidbit like that, that I'll be, you know, maybe approach with certain preconceived notions in my mind, and maybe those will end up being accurate
It's
and
a good
maybe not. But
foundation to build a relation from. Like I think that's the most important factor in it. Like you'd be less inclined to approach someone like with trepidation if you have familiar ground, and music's a big one for me. So I
right,
people that say, "Oh, I listen to everything," I'm like, "Okay, what do you mean?" And it always ends up being just the radio, whatever's on the radio. And because like whenever I hire new
right,
people, it's a easy icebreaker for me. Is what kind of music do you listen to? And no, I don't judge people. It just makes it easier. So my workmate, who I consider a close mate of mine, we do not talk about music at all. He and I do not have any interest in the same kind of music. We've got other areas like our woodwork, our woodcrafting, and our love for rugby league, and we got many other things that we can discuss, and we have a great relationship and foundation because of that. It was never from music, but for me to, I know Joey was concerned about sounding like a dick. I'm going to sound like a dick. It's easier for me to want to bother building a relationship with someone if we have familiar ground when it comes to music. And it doesn't have to be the same kind of fucking music. It's just the passion for music. I don't I don't care that we don't listen, that
right,
you
yeah,
love rap and I love metal, because I probably know more about rap than you do because I grew up on the fucking shit. And I can talk to you about that because I still listen to, um, like if we look at my Spotify, I bet you that the vision would be, 30% of that is rap and hip hop and chill hop. I it's just the passion. I feel that people that don't, and Joey said it before as well, creativity is a big thing. I feel that people that don't listen to music proactively and it's not an integral part of their lives, they lack passion, and it's harder to broach certain subjects with them because they seem so dislocated, or and I think it's a reflective of a personality trait, and I think that's what makes it easier to determine whether you're going to give this person the time of the day. And I think that's an easy way. When Joe was talking about being able to discern someone and their traits, that's a big factor in it. So yeah. And
right.
yeah, I won't carry on too much with that, but yeah, I think that's a big thing, very big, important thing for me.
Hmm. Word. Yeah. So yeah, I feel like there's a very how do I say this, like I guess even like positive correlation between like how pragmatic you are with your music taste and like how your general passion sort of plays out. And but at the same time too, it's like I feel like I'm a little bit more like liberal about that than than Seph might be, because it's like uh it's like I don't know. I've met a lot of people too who just haven't had the push yet, and then find the
That's
push
different.
later,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
it's like yeah, it is different, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Coachable is the word, I guess. But yeah, I think
Submissive and coachable.
submissive and coachable and possibly breedable to nubile in a sense. Uh, but yeah. Anyway, I think that that's like a really good cornerstone of a lot of this discussion too, because it kind of puts into perspective a lot of the things that we were talking about and sort of pushes it on how we see people outwardly. And like, you guys have mentioned a few times throughout this episode about being asocial. I feel like it puts some of that into context. And like, I don't mean that in a negative way, like you guys are fucking sick fucks, like, but I
And
feel
now
like it
now
puts,
you see that.
yeah. I just think it's funny that you would see that way. I'm not even mad. I just think it's interesting. But no. I mean, because I agree with you guys too. I'm definitely the same way. So, but I think that's like a nice little bow on top of the subject that we chose this week. So for the last like couple minutes, anything that we want to say about the songs that we chose? I'll start off like real quick because I just to give you guys a cadence for I guess sort of what I'm asking. Um, but I chose like a couple new tracks here, this Russian Circles track and that Pianos Become the Teeth track. Because they were like some new songs by bands that I've been into that I'm like really excited to see those releases for. And then I picked that Aesop Rock song because I just now listened to that album and I had slept on it for
Yeah.
like 2 years. Um, and then also the one I really want to highlight was this Monochrome track by Mindframe. They're like a new sort of like punk-ish band from like Bristol. And there's like 7 different genres in that song. It's fucking sick. It's like um part of it's almost like I almost want to say I'm gonna hate myself for saying it, but it's like almost like the intro is like kind of almost deaf heaveny, where it does the like, oh, this is a genre that we don't play, but like or that we listen to, but like maybe we shouldn't be playing. But then it goes
Right.
into like a more comfortable, like almost post punk thing, and then it goes like post hardcore, and then there's like this like weird screaming outro. Um, but it's super sick. I really recommend that track. I think the most. I feel like that kind of like encapsulates all of my musical interest in like one song, and I'm really stoked to see what this band puts out in the future.
Hell yeah.
What about yours, Jamie?
So I similar sort of I put in a few miscellaneous tracks from some releases that I've really enjoyed in the last couple of years. So one of them was by this group from Philadelphia area, Soul Glow. They're like a group that blends elements of like screamo and post hardcore with like hip hop, but like also in kind of like a bit more of like an in your face like honestly, it's like Bad Brains meets Orchid sort of thing,
Oh,
but
what the
like
fuck?
also
Huh.
with some hip hop. Like, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's interesting. That was one of the tracks. Also a song from the latest Spelling album. I don't know if y'all are familiar with her.
Hmm.
She's kind of like psychedelic R&B soul, just kind of
Right
like
up my
just
alley.
blends like a lot of different genres sort of thing. But yeah, no, her music is super cool. I'm really stoked to be able to see her in a few months at actually shit in a few weeks as it were at Pitchfork here in Chicago. But her album from last year, The Turning Wheel, is like one of my favorite albums of the last few years. She's kind of like the closest thing that I've encountered to like a modern Kate Bush sort
Right.
of thing
That's
without being like Kate. Like Kate Bush is definitely a clear source of influence for her, but like definitely contextualized in a different sense. Like Kate Bush, but also like Sade, but also like a bunch of shit like that. What else did I put? Oh, I put a song by Midair Thief. He's like a South Korean like folk musician, but he has like a really eclectic approach to folk music, and he just kind of gets real. His guitar playing is really just kind of fascinating to me. Not being a guitar player, I can't really like relate to it as much on like a technical level, but like he definitely does some really cool stuff with within that context. And honestly, I'd be lying if I told. Oh, you know what? The last one was a track by another of my favorite albums from last year. The artist Lil Ugly Mane. Seph, I
This
don't know
took
if
me
you.
by surprise, but it's very Jamie.
Yeah. No, so because he started off like more like a Memphis hip hop guy, almost kind of doing like a horrorcore sort of thing. But his most recent album, honestly, sounds about as much like like the Eels or like Beck
Oh
as
yes.
it does anything from his like previous era, and it's got a
Hmm.
really just kind of like dreamy sort of aspect to it that I just like found like you talked about the one song encompassing everything that you enjoy in music. This little ugly Mane record like checks so many boxes for me in terms of what I like
Fuck
outside of
yeah.
heavy music, to the extent that like it
Hell
was,
yeah.
yeah, absolutely really good. But how about your
So
selection,
my
Seth?
ones were pretty simple. It's mostly just fucking metal. So Alt. This
Oh yeah.
isn't the ALLT band that I mentioned previously. This is another one. They're I think it was South Australian band. They opened up for North Lane last night. I haven't seen. So you know how
Nice.
like in audio, like in live music, like the vocalists tend to tweak their vocals just below the instrument so you can't hear their fuck ups. This guy had his vocals higher,
Mhm.
and I immediately had respect
Ooh.
because I'm like, anyone that's a vocalist that's comfortable putting their music above their sound above the instruments, you've automatically like ticked the good box for me. And he just blew us away. And sadly, they didn't have any merch because they're not very well known. But yeah, that song "Chasing Safety," I definitely
Oh,
suggest checking out the EP. It's only like 5 or 6 tracks, but it's a banger. Ashen was one. So I mentioned in previous podcasts that we do a Friday where we just I play all new releases for that week that come up on Spotify, whatever's on that list. It doesn't matter what kind of music it is. It is what it is. Ashen are really fucking cool. It's just the heavy, genty sound that I grow to love, but it's it goes into new territory. Sounds really cool, really floaty kind of metal, and the vocalist is powerful. He reminds me of another band who I've got near time, the Evaluators original singer. Just sings really strong and aggressive. Has that slight rasp to it, despite singing high, kind of like Spencer Sotelo from Periphery. And I love vocals like that. On that time, the Evaluators Blackwater, their first release in like 3 years. I'm a big fan of these guys. I mentioned them to John recently since he's he's straying from Dance Gavin Dance. So I always consider them the better. They're not wanky and out there like Dance Gavin Dance are, but they have a similar feel to them, and so I've always preferred them because they're a bit more controlled. So that's a fucking great song, easy to listen to. And then fucking Aussie legends Alpha Wolf with their latest release Hotel Underground. The shit just makes me want to fucking punch walls. Like, yeah, I don't know. At least it's something. It doesn't make me want to punch air, that's for sure. There's they just have a
Gonna make you punch the dude at that
yeah.
gig last night.
just makes me
And
want to go
because
full Kyle.
funnily enough, they played Alpha Wolf last night, and everyone was fucking singing to it because they're not necessarily local legends. The drummer Mitch is he's a local boy. He's been in a couple scenes. Funnily enough, just a weird quick tangent. Mitch, who's the drummer for Alpha Wolf, the girl that I said that I met and my partner became best friends with, or good friends with, that was one of his original band. So Geiger. So he used to be
Oh,
in a
okay,
band,
okay.
and he was only 14 when he was in that band, and so he used to
Oh
get
wow.
escorted into the venue. So yeah, it's funny how we start where we end. Oh, we end where we start. So yeah, I found that fucking great. So yeah, definitely check out all like this whole playlist. And I'm gonna say for Spirit, for John's, his one seemed to be about the current situation, which is really fucking cool and on the nose. Just the situation that's going on in America now. And so he's got Every Time I Die, Planet Shit, which is a fucking banger if you don't know it. Spirit Box's new
Absolutely.
EP, he's got Hysteria from that. Is I fucking love. I was going to put that on, and then I knew that John was going to fucking put one of those songs on, so I didn't worry about it. That is just Spirit Box.
Yeah. That was a given.
And
That one was a given.
on a little tangent there, that Spirit Box EP, it's very divisive. I fucking love it. I was a bit iffy on the start, but it's growing on me every listen, and I Yeah, I'm right on it. I know nothing about Alexis on Fire and single mothers, so maybe you fellas know.
Oh yeah, both of those bands I'm very familiar, especially Alexis on Fire. Yeah, I was actually going to talk a little bit about John's just a second too, because I feel like first off, I knew we'd get to Spirit Box next week. Hopefully, we have time to do that. Um, but I know he put this every time I die song, Planet Shit, because that's how he feels about the world, and I feel like it's very fitting
Yep.
for everything that's happened this last week.
Yeah,
Um, and that single mother's track is a very John track. So I'm excited to hear him defend himself. And obviously, the man is Canadian, so he loves Alexis on Fire. That's like it's stereotypical John shit. Um, but yeah, I haven't actually listened to this album yet. I'm glad he put this on here because I've been
Same.
meaning to. I listened to that song "Sans Soleil" that came out. That was a good little track. So I wasn't a huge fan of that last Alexis on Fire record, but I'm stoked to give this
I
one a
don't like them
listen.
in
So,
general, so this will be
oh yeah,
interesting for me.
bitch, respectful. But yeah, thank you guys. I feel like it went a little bit longer, but it's fine. I think we had really good conversation, and appreciate you guys. Well, Jamie especially for starting so early, and Seph for like literally being on a marathon every single fucking day of his life.
I had my
Apparently,
sleep. I'm okay.
but yeah. Yeah, yeah, you're going right to sleep as soon as this ends. Just honk sue me. Um, but yeah, well, hopefully John will join us next time. And yeah, I really like the idea of like bringing new people in, or rotating people, or whatever, would have ye. Uh, but yeah, I'll put the link to the playlist in the description as always. And thank you guys again for hanging out and chatting. And that's it. Anything else?
yeah,
Anyone want to say anything else before we
No,
close out?
I'm good. Awesome as always. It was a great meeting you, Jamie, and loved tapping into the old
yeah.
brain a bit there. And I'm hoping this carries on forward. It seemed to work very well.
Absolutely. I look forward to another feature. I'll see if I can put together some anecdotes or something. But yeah, no, I'm not always super great at off the cuff stuff. So thank you guys for putting up with my tangential language today. But
I think you did a really really good job, so I wouldn't worry about it. Yeah, but thanks again, guys. Thanks everybody for listening. This is something that I'm really excited to always do every week, and stoked to see where it goes from here.
hell yeah.
So yeah, take care, and fuck Jesse Lacey. If I ever see him, he's catching a